Introducing Peacock, the new free streaming service from NBC Universal. It's hit movies, current shows, live sports, trending bits, and timeless hits. And that's why you can't not watch. Peacock. Watch for free. Upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com. Law & Order SVU streaming now.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM. And now broadcasting from a secret location, your hosts, Joel Sturgis and Doug Hychak.
And good evening. Welcome to Untold Radio. I am your host, Joel Sturgis. With me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Mr. Doug Hychak. How you doing, Doug?
Good. Gee, Joel, you look different and you sound different.
I was going to say, did I say something wrong in that intro?
Yeah, you said you were Joel Sturgis.
Am I not?
No, you're not.
Well, I'll be damned. Look at that. Yeah, I'm not Joel Sturgis. And I'm the wonderful guest co-host tonight, Michael O'Neill. And so if I'm not Joel, are you actually Doug?
Maybe not. I'm Doug.
How do we know?
Because I have a Jeep story. You know my Jeep?
I definitely know your Jeep.
It's your favorite vehicle to ride in?
Yeah. If by favorite you mean awful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyhow, my Jeep, you'd be good and very happy to know, is broken down completely because of a USB port that has somehow malfunctioned, and somehow they've managed, the Chrysler engineers, to connect the entire car to the USB port. And so when you plug something in, the whole car just goes, shuts
You're kidding me.
No.
So basically the entire electrical system is dependent upon everything working.
Yeah.
And if one thing goes down, your entire car ceases to exist.
Seems like it. Well, this is the Uconnect, the USB port that you can communicate with your radio or whatever. But if I just plug it in, any USB, it just shuts the whole car off. And so now it's going to be a week before I have any car to drive because, as you know, I have a couple of other cars.
Yes, you do. Just one or two. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to go start one of those one or two. Dead. Go to another one. Dead. Go to another one. Dead. Another one. Dead. I'm like, oh my God. I had a mechanic who I'd hired to take care of this stuff, to make sure they're running and,
Right.
But he had to fill in for a friend who had COVID. And yeah. So that's what happened. So I had no car. No car.
So your Jeep broke down.
Yes.
The mechanic for all of your other cars then got called to do something else.
Yes.
And in that span of time, all of your car batteries died.
Yes, because they call me Mr. Battery.
No, they don't. Nobody ever calls you Mr. Battery.
You have like 4 people that do, because all my batteries go dead. I can buy a brand new vehicle. The new battery's wrecked and dead within a week.
I'd say that's more of a personal problem.
It's it's just my batteries and me do not get along.
Interesting. So you didn't really hook up a battery charger and just
I couldn't
charge
get
it up.
Okay. So I was going to take my Challenger. The battery is located in the trunk, and you have to have a key, right? Of course, that's electronic. Well, that won't open. And so I finally got into the car thinking, well, there's got to be an emergency latch for the trunk because the battery's located in the trunk. Nope.
Apparently, you bought a lot of cars that either make it impossible in the case of an emergency to work them, or they just don't work.
Correct.
Nice.
It's just
You ever thought of maybe like not buying Jeep?
not buying what? Jeep? Oh, Jeep. I like my Jeep.
I know you do, but Jeeps are terrible. I'm sorry to say, and I know there's a lot of Jeep people out there, and you have your own little code. I had a cousin who had a Jeep Wrangler lifted, and apparently, according to him, it was if you're not in the club, you just don't understand. But like, I've driven Jeeps, I've driven in yours. It's been terrible. I can't stand Jeep.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I mean, for your Jeep, it's just health reasons, apparently.
Yeah.
Because I don't get car sick, period. But riding in your flipping Jeep for an hour puts my stomach into knots.
Yeah, it did. Oh, well. But you'd be happy to know it's somewhere in a shop, and I get the call. Oh, we won't get it done till Monday. We have to order a new USB port. And then I'm thinking, the old days were better in some ways. You know, we had a mechanical switch that you would, if that switch broke, so the left window didn't roll down, but you could get home.
Of course.
But now, but here's the rest of the story. It caused
there's more. I like it.
Sure, of course. It caused the check engine light to go off, which caused a cavalcade of other warnings to go off. And it just kept getting weirder and weirder. And I held off for quite a while. Just
naturally.
Did not use that USB port. But it finally all kind of collapsed. Yep. Anyway. So
have you ever thought of just like going to Enterprise and renting a car?
You're going to love this story. So I call my mechanic up and tell him about the little paradox with the Challenger. They told him I need to drive it. I gotta have a car to drive. So he delivers it, but the thing's been sitting so long, the tires are out of round. So when you drive it, it feels like you're in a car with square wheels.
Like you're on a bunch of potholes.
Yeah, and he's like, you got to replace all your tires. And I'm like, dude, the car's got 500 miles on it. I'm not going to replace my tires. Can I just do a burnout and just like them out?
I'm not a mechanic. I know absolutely jack crap about cars. So this is probably going to sound like a really dumb question to everybody who understands cars and what you're talking about. Can't you just put more air into them?
That's what I did. I put even extra air, and it still goes dun 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 dun. And they're all 4 tires, so it's quite a ride.
Wow, I didn't know tires could do that. I again don't know anything about cars, but I didn't know that just sitting there could like flatten your tires.
Exactly.
I mean, like air-wise, but like actually make it so like the treads were more compact in one certain area.
Yeah, I'm like, well, what kind of rubber are they using in those dang tires?
Well, so you need those, what are they, Bridgestones or whatever. They like, even if like they're punctured, they're supposedly supposed to go like another 50 miles before you would actually have to have them changed.
Do you know how I would feel going to get brand new tires in the Challenger on a brand new car and then letting it sit again this winter, and then next spring the tires are off, out of round again.
Well, see, I made this offer to you like last summer or even probably even before that. I'm more than happy to come over and drive all of your cars.
So you'd be like instead of a dog walker, you'd be a car driver.
Yeah.
Kinda
especially the Viper. I want the Viper.
Just a dog.
Yeah, I just tell me it's time to walk the cars, and I will come over and I'll start them all and I'll drive them all over the city for you. Huh? And get them going. What else I got to do besides my work? I make my own schedules.
It'd probably be cheaper than buying new tires. Because then I'm like, oh my God, is this going to be with all the cars?
Maybe. I mean, obviously it depends on the tire, I'm assuming. But yeah. I will definitely. I would do it for free. So yeah, it'd be cheap.
So if anybody has any fix for out around tires, maybe I thought, well, maybe if I wait till summer when it's warm and I get on a 90-degree day and then put like 50 pounds of, PSI in each tire.
50 pounds.
Oh, you know what I mean? A lot.
Do I? Because I could see you probably putting like 50 pounds in a 32 PSI tire.
Yeah, well, that's probably not. Well, I got to replace them anyhow, so it blows.
That is correct. But I would already have the tires there in case that happens. Otherwise, you're not going anywhere until you change them.
Call the tow truck.
Yeah, that's not going to be expensive at all.
I'm thinking, I was thinking I could do a burnout, but then I'm thinking, well, that won't help the front.
No, it won't.
Oh, well, anyhow, enough about cars, but it's
what are you
still...
talking about? Isn't that the whole thing of the show? Just talk about cars? Just 2 hours of car talk?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, it's not. And we do have a great guest here tonight, which I forgot to mention. We have Larry Battson that is coming on. Did I say his last name right?
Yes.
Good. Excellent. Who has been doing Bigfoot research for 40 years, at least.
Oh, God, yeah.
Since the 70s. And apparently, and I want you to explain this to me, and then I'm going to have him explain it even more. But you said something that he's doing, like, eyewitness, like, drawings? Like, live.
Live, yep.
What is that about?
Okay, so he's got a Facebook show. He sits down with a witness that you can see him on camera, and they tell him what they saw, and he draws it, and he shows them the drawing, and they're like, yeah, it had a higher forehead, and he changes it until he gets it right, and he does the entire creature live. The face, obviously the most important part. And I thought it was really cool. It's like a police sketch session.
Amy, is this what you saw? So the show The Dead Files, I'm pretty sure you've never seen it. And every episode, that's part of it, where she has a sketch artist draw what Amy Allen, who's a medium, sees on her walks. Like whether it's a person or a scene or something that she saw during her walk. And every single episode, after drawing it out, the sketch artist turns to Amy and says, Amy, is this what you saw? And then she's like, yes, it is. Or yes, any sort of that. So when you're talking about him doing it, then just like, Amy, is this what you saw?
Yeah. Well, maybe
interesting.
Larry got the idea.
Could be. I'll ask him. If he's an idea thief.
Yeah, if he plagiarized the Dead Files. I thought it was brilliant. I really did, because you get to hear the ton of details that you would never get out of a witness, because you're really gotten to jog their memory, because they're looking at the sketch. And then at the end, Larry shows the completed sketch, but you get to see it developed. It's a cool idea.
No, I agree. I think that it's a phenomenal addition to the Dead Files. I think everybody loves the sketches that are done, and I agree that as a witness, and you're asking, how tall is it? What did it look like? I would think that would really make it so you had to think and you had to remember. So it might even jog your memory to things that you didn't even think were all that important.
Yeah, but here's how dumb I am.
Oh, it's going to take a while.
So So I call him up and I go, Larry, what is the name of that show that you do with the sketches? And I said, I cannot think of it. And he goes, Drawing Bigfoot.
Yeah.
He goes,
could have saw that one coming.
Yeah, and he goes, what were you thinking, Hi-Check?
Well, what were you thinking? Did you have a name that you would have called it?
It was some tricky name, like the Bigfoot Files, or just something more tricky. Not Drawing Bigfoot. So
no, we have everybody wants to do a a copy or some sort of spin-off of Finding Bigfoot, it seems.
Yeah.
You know, because we have Finding Bigfoot, we have Expedition Bigfoot, Jesus Pan Jr.
Yep.
You know, he's got Breaking Bigfoot, which I think is hilarious since he's on Breaking Bad. Now we have Drawing Bigfoot.
Yep.
Is it safe to say that Bigfoot is trending right now?
Yes. I would.
Why do you think that is?
I think because there are just so many shows. And I think the shows raise, they're self-fulfilling. They raise the popularity. To give you a great example, I used to go to SEMA for like 30 years, going to SEMA, the big car convention in Vegas.
Yep.
And then all these car shows popped up, restoring all these cars and valuing them and this and that and blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, I remember going to SEMA one year after all these shows became popular. And I'm like, oh my God, there's like 30 times the amount of people here. And so it was the fact that TV has a way of, I put it this way. I think you could popularize, I don't want to say it, but like a turd.
What?
Well,
like polishing a turd?
You could make anything popular. An empty water bottle. If there were 20 TV shows about an empty water bottle, suddenly empty water bottles would be really, really popular.
So what you're saying is that I need a whole bunch of dating shows featuring overweight guys dating a lot of really good-looking women.
Yeah.
And then women will like
back the truck up. I have to literally let somebody into my studio. Just hang on a second.
Wait, like now? Literally?
Yeah, literally. Just hang on. Hang on.
Okay. Well, all right. I'll just talk then. We're going to do an impromptu infomercial. So one of the things that listeners of the show might not know is that I am also the organizer of Minnesota Para-Unity Convention and the Las Vegas Para-Unity Convention, which is going to be featuring Mr. Doug Hychek at both of them. Right, Doug?
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah. I'd never seen you run so fast.
Because
ever.
I did a really stupid thing, and I locked a door that I shouldn't have locked.
You had to let the event in?
Yes.
Way to lock out your wife.
You could have imagined how bad that would have been if I wouldn't have opened it.
I could not foresee you being back here next week.
No, it would be good. Anyhow.
It would be a live funeral.
There's
here on Untold Radio.
Look, there's always something that happens in every little live show, unless you're actually in a big, radio station, and you're doing it all day long, and your guests are just calling in. But with all the technology, there's just always something that goes haywire. And so today, I locked the lock is what got me, even though everything technically seems to be working. Seems to be.
Yeah, everything is working perfect. We're broadcasting live.
Yes, we are. Anyhow, so MGM. I want to talk about the MGM convention.
Sure. You want to talk about Minnesota, which is coming up July 8th through the 10th?
Yeah, we can do that. But the MGM convention is such a beautiful time because it's cold here.
Yes, it is.
We get to go to Vegas when it's like perfect weather there. It's like 70 degrees every day. It's awesome.
Yeah. That actually, the Las Vegas Para-Unity Convention is December 9th through the 11th. I didn't get a chance to say those dates before you were back.
Well, I just think that it's the perfect time of year to do it. And that's it's obviously going to be a big convention.
Yeah. I'm doing a bunch of promos now. In fact, if you get in by tonight to the VIP dinner, there's a promotion going on that ends tonight. The drawing is tomorrow, where anybody that buys a VIP dinner seat and they win, there's going to be 6 winners drawn tomorrow, will get to choose who they want to sit next to at the dinner. So if they want to make sure that they reserve their seat next to Mr. Doug Highcheck, then they can go and buy a ticket for the VIP dinner, win, and then look at the choose to sit next to you for the dinner.
That are you announcing to everybody? I actually get to go to the VIP dinner.
Everyone that I put on my so-called roster or lineup, unless for some reason they can't do it, because right now, like the Ghost Brothers, they're going to be at the convention, but they're not going to be able to make the dinner. But the 28 other celebs or talent or whatever you want, personalities, are all going to be there. In fact, it's in their contract that they have to attend. So,
hey, Jesus called me and he said that you guys worked out a thing, and he's going to be speaking at the MGM also.
I don't know about I don't know about speaking. He's definitely going to be there.
What's he going to do?
He's going to shake hands and take photos, just like everybody else. Get the fans what they want.
Oh man, you should get him
A little piece of the junior.
He's got a good little presentation.
Well, I honestly have not actually set up any schedule so far. The only one that for sure is going to be on the main stage is Lori Johnson, because she's doing a gallery reading. But otherwise, it's up in the air. So it just depends on who all I can get. I definitely want a lot of panels. So I want a UFO panel where, I would like a Bigfoot panel, which I would probably have you on, obviously. And I want to give people at the absolute most talent presentations that I can. And otherwise, I think it's 6 a day is it. If everybody does an hour with 15 minutes in between. So trying to give people what they want, Doug.
Yeah, no, sounds good. You're definitely giving them the location.
No, I haven't given them the location yet.
John, you're giving them the location.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant in my infomercial. I didn't tell them where it was, except for Las Vegas.
No. Oh, you didn't announce that. Did I screwed up and I just announced it?
No, you did it for me, which is fine.
MGM?
It's at the MGM Grand, obviously.
MGM. MGM.
And if you want details that I'm not talking about, or you want to get tickets, it's vegasparayunity.com. Or if you're right here in Minnesota, like Doug and myself are, mnparacon.com. And you can get tickets to that. And you can see Doug at that event as well.
So let's talk about the convention coming up in Duluth. Beautiful.
July. Yeah, baby.
Beautiful Duluth. For anybody that has not been to Duluth, I think it's one of the most, scenic places that I've ever been to, and I've been all over the world.
It's gorgeous. For anybody who doesn't know Duluth, especially when it comes to July, it's right on the bank of Lake Superior. It's very hilly. It's got one massive hill that goes up the entire side of the city. And yeah, when you're coming down I-35 and you're at the top of the hill and you kind of come around this corner and there's Lake Superior and huge tanker ships and the cities to your left and the waters to your, it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
The thing is, people don't realize that we're, right where Duluth is kind of the dead center of the country. And we have ocean liners. I mean, upper dead center.
I was going to say, I don't know what you're smoking right now, but Duluth is not the center of the country.
Such a perfectionist. I'm talking about in the middle. If you divided left and right, it's in the middle. But we have our own, basically, ocean coast. We call it, the center coast. And we have, ocean liners, cruise liners coming in. It's kind of nuts.
It's, yeah. I mean, for anybody knows this, Lake Superior is gigantic. And I have, as somebody who doesn't particularly leave the suburbs very often, it's nice to see.
Somewhere I read that Lake Superior has one 1/3 of all the fresh water on the planet.
Yes, I think I've read that too. I know they have an absolute gigantic portion of it. Yeah,
It's crazy. 1,300 feet deep. And you think about how big it is and how wide. And the water also is extremely pure. Literally, there's been countries that want to import it just the way it is, just the way it comes out of the lake for drinking water.
They want to import Lake Superior water
And bottle it and sell it for drinking water. Correct.
That doesn't make any sense. We pollute the crap out of that lake.
I'm just telling you what I've heard. And they've been fighting it. You know, they basically keep voting it down. They don't want to let companies come in and take our water.
I think they're going to get sued for all the deaths that it causes for tainted water.
Isn't all water a little tainted?
I hope not.
It is. Yeah, I think we're all dreaming. And by the way, that brings me right into the next thing I wanted to bring up. Something came through my feed that you had posted.
Uh-oh.
Phthalates in the water are making everybody's penis shrink.
Oh. Yeah. So apparently there is a scientist, I believe overseas, that was saying that pollution is making it so men are born with smaller genitalia.
And so phthalates are an ingredient that goes into plastic, or it bleeds out of plastic, certain plastics. So they have phthalate-free plastics, like you should be, like if you have a water bottle, you don't want to get one with phthalates because apparently it's going to shrink your junk.
Right. So I was just saying that I think this has been going on for at least 40 years.
I was just wondering if you were a bit concerned, if you were,
Well, it's a little too late for me to be concerned.
I just thought maybe it was, something you were looking for an answer.
No, I'm not so much looking for an answer as so much a scapegoat.
A scapegoat. Yeah, that's what I meant, a scapegoat.
Yeah, I want to be able to blame stuff on.
Yes.
So, yeah. Thank you so much for bringing that up on live radio.
Anyhow, I just thought it was funny, but then I'm thinking, who wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm going to get a research grant to see what effect phthalates have on the phallic symbol.
Well, somebody who's very motivated. Somebody may want an answer to why they are not being hired for porn movies.
Yeah, that could be, yes.
So, however, in this day and age with, like Pornhub and, those kind of things, I think no matter the size. So technically size doesn't matter anymore because you can find an audience that's going to enjoy whatever it is you want to produce for them.
You're just zinging off to the left.
I'm just trying to make people understand, what the mentality of people is these days. That's all.
What I'm thinking and what I'm wondering is really what is in Lake Superior, because you would think these drinking water companies would have gotten some samples and tested it, right?
Well, that's what I was just about to say to you. I'm like, I can't believe that you would know, because you've done a lot of stuff in Lake Superior that I can't believe that you didn't at some point do some sort of test.
Yeah, what I was looking for is all the weird little creatures live in Lake Superior.
Right.
I mean, that was my goal, just to, just study all the weird things and hopefully look for new types of creatures. But did I take a bottle of water and have it tested for pollution? No, I did not. But I would imagine Lake Superior has got to be one of the cleanest lakes in the world. It just has to be.
What? What makes you think that?
Because there's not that many sources of pollution in and around Lake Superior.
I don't know if I can. I mean, they have humongous tankers and ships all over that thing for years upon years. I would assume that there's got to be, fuel leakage or something that is still part of it.
What people don't realize is that pollution, to a point, does get eaten by, for instance, oil eventually gets eaten. The hydrocarbons get eaten by bacteria. A lot of that stuff does.
Se siente bien saber que cuando le pones sirope a tu Big Breakfast with Hotcakes de McDonald's, tú controlas dónde cae. Primero se acerca a tu biscuit y rodea la salchicha, luego llega a tus hash browns y finalmente a tus huevos revueltos, dándoles ese sabor dulce del maple. Ordena por anticipado en el app de McDonald's y que fluya el sirope. Para pa pa pa. Móvil Order and Pay en McDonald's participantes requiere la descarga y registro.
The reasons to treat yourself to a frozen drink from McDonald's go on and on. No reason is also a perfectly good reason. It's more than a drink. It's a McDonald's drink.
Enjoy our new frozen drinks today. Treat yourself to bold flavors like blue raspberry Fanta, wild cherry Fanta, and frozen Coke. At participating McDonald's, Coca-Cola and Fanta are registered trademarks of the Coca-Cola Company.
Get eaten. It goes through the food chain and it gets diluted. But name one spring. Okay, I'm drinking some spring water, right? Or it's in a plastic bottle, and it says so-and-so spring. I mean, really? Is that spring untainted? What aquifer nowadays is going to be untainted? They're all
well, now they put it through like a 7-step purification process. Maybe not your water, but stuff I drink.
You drink what, like Donzi water or something?
I should drink a lot of tap water that goes through like the refrigerator filter, which I should have replaced probably like 3 months ago. So yeah, I'm doing good.
Anyhow, I have always been very interested in taking a bunch of bottled waters and testing them.
I think you should. I think it'd be great.
Chromatograph is doing a really good job.
But speaking of testing the waters, we have to go to commercial. So, we're going to be back here in about 3.5 minutes or so with our wonderful guest, Mr. Larry Battson. So, we'll be right back. You are listening to Untold Radio here on the Iron Range Radio Network.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And we are back, and you are listening to Untold Radio here on the Iron Range Radio Network. I am your host, Michael O'Neill, for tonight only, I assure you. Now, apparently, we lost Doug, but we gained a Larry, so we're doing we're doing all right. Our guest tonight is Larry Battson, who has been. Hey, welcome back, Doug.
Hey,
sweet. So I was just introducing Larry here. So, who has been doing Bigfoot research since the 70s, which is longer than I've been alive.
Thanks.
I was going to say, so if that doesn't date Larry, I don't know what is.
Oh, God.
But he looks 20. He looks like he's 20 years old.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You ought to make an eye appointment tomorrow, Doug.
He needs more than just an eye appointment.
See if you can get in.
He definitely needs more than just an eye appointment.
Okay.
But so anyway, Larry, why don't you? I know Joel is one of the ones that just kind of goes off on a large tangent about everything that you've done in your life while you were sitting here. So I would like you to just kind of speak for yourself and tell everybody, kind of, who you are and what you have done with your entire life.
Oh, my God. Well, I'm a wildlife educator, and for the last 41 years, I've traveled all over the country with my collection of wild animals, doing educational presentations for schools, nature centers, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Audubon Society, Explorers Club. For many years, we worked with Jim Fowler, and we provided the animals he would take on the Johnny Carson show. And things like Mike Douglas, Merv Griffin, Oprah. We took animals on Oprah one time. And so we basically created and invented our own job. And it's really weird now because the people will walk up to me that to me look old. And they'll say, I remember you when I was in elementary school. And I thought, oh, my gosh. But it's been
kind of like what I just did.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like that. But so I was so heavily involved with that. And but the Bigfoot thing, which we're going to be talking about tonight, that all started many years ago when a book came out, In Search of Bigfoot, by a fellow named Peter Byrne. And that was his first book. And after reading that book, I was told they had me. And then, of course, when the Patterson-Gimlin film came out and had the Argosy magazine and had a chance to check that out, that really got one's imagination going. So I was in. I thought it was a fascinating subject.
Okay, so before we get into Bigfoot, you said that you travel with a collection of wild animals.
Mm-hmm. Tigers.
What do you mean by wild animals?
Oh, well, tigers, lions, baboons, celebes, apes, pythons, alligators, leopards. Gosh, so many. Camels, llamas.
How do you get a collection of that many different, like, hugely wild animals.
Well, this is all I've ever done since I was about 20 years old. I've worked with around people that had wild animals. And I worked for a gentleman for many years. Well, for 2 years, I shouldn't say many. When I was in my early 20s, and he was a wildlife importer. So he had everything, and I had a chance to work with everything. But I wasn't really into the part of marketing wild animals, but I'd always find myself getting excited when people would, when I'd share an animal with them, I'd see the excitement in their face, especially school children, because there's nothing like being in their own gymnasium, sitting in their bleachers, and all of a sudden hear something like a lion or a tiger they have a chance to see, or a baboon. And, I realize when I speak to, we do groups anywhere from 400 to 1,000 at a time. We're not necessarily speaking to future zoologists or biologists, but they're gonna grow up and vote. They're gonna decide that we need to save these wild animals, we need to save our wild lands. So we try to make an impression some way. But over the years, I've found out, well, my own veterinarian I had for many, many years, he decided he wanted to be a veterinarian for wildlife when he saw our presentation in high school. And now he's the head vet at the Buffalo Zoo in Buffalo, New York. I've had many go on to be conservation officers. They say I inspire, and veterinarians and that sort of thing. So it makes you really realize what we did was so very important.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not even like high school and elementary school kids. I mean, if you put a presentation here in the public, let's just say in Minneapolis here, I would go to that. I would love to see a lion that's not like being hunted, that's actually being cared for, and like leopards and baboon. I would love seeing that, and I'm 40 years old. I'm probably not going to become a veterinarian, but I would definitely love to see it.
But I've had people that many of the schools will go in and do a night show that, say, a school we've done for 20 or 30 years, and the parents will bug the schools. Can we come to the convocation that day? We want to see it again. And sometimes they'll say, well, let's just do a night one for the grown-ups, and we'll have a bigger crowd than if we had one at the school during the day. It's absolutely incredible. And then I'll ask in the audience how many remember our show from elementary school, and about 90% of the hands go up. So that's very humbling. I mean, to think we're only in there 45 minutes a year, and for them to remember it for decades, that's pretty amazing to me. I think it shows you the power of animals. And, Jim Fowler, he was so much behind us on this education with animals and so forth, and doing it the right way, and making the young people realize that this is our future right here, and they're disappearing very quickly. So we want to inspire them to make sure that these things don't happen.
Doug, you'd go to a show like that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would. See, Larry, when you would travel around, obviously you had to go to Hollywood, right, to go on these talk shows. What did you do with the animals? Did you bring them in your hotel room?
Oh, yeah. Toluca Lake Motel, right there by Burbank. And that was we found that, or I should say Mutual of Omaha found that hotel motel would let us stay there with the animals. And one of the funniest times, we went out there to do the Carson show with Mike Delaney from the Cincinnati Zoo, and he brought an aardvark that he'd trained to be on Carson. Well, if you've never been around an aardvark, they have a different smell to them. And it's kind of like a locker room mixed with some rotten chicken and maybe some spoiled broccoli. And this guy would keep this aardvark in his room in this big steel, because they can dig through concrete. He came in this big steel cage, and every morning you'd go to his door. Hey, Mike, you ready to go? He'd open that door and go, whoa, wow, that's quite an aroma there.
That's pungent.
That's kind of pungent, I'm thinking, how did he even sleep? But he loved that aardvark.
So when you guys would check out, they would rent these rooms to travelers?
I assume so. I guess, we did pretty good, as far as their minimum damage. I can remember one time going to a sportsman show in Wichita, Kansas in the winter time. And we got to about St. Louis, and we couldn't go any further. So we stayed the night in this pretty nice hotel. And we had a couple young mountain lions with us. and we'd keep them in these big dog crates. They use a ship like a St. Bernard. And to quiet them down, we covered them with a blanket. So next morning, we're getting ready to leave about 6:37. I look at the blanket. It's been pulled through one of those little holes in the front of that dog crate. And there was a hole about the size of a basketball right in the middle of it. So I thought, we just left. We said, we didn't have much money back then. We were kind of it was low budget. So we just got out of there.
You can only imagine the maid. When the maid found that,
well,
what she thought.
Well, this story, we also did a program for many years called the Rattlesnake Roundup, where we'd go into these outdoor shows and we'd build a desert with rock, sand, and cactus. And during the show, I'd walk through this man-made desert and catch tarantulas, Gila monsters, bull snakes, rattlesnakes. Well, we were staying at the hotel that's adjoined to this exposition hall in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. So during the day, I'd take the rattlesnakes in the crate up to my room because it's a nice, secure place. And then to cover them up with a blanket so nobody really know they're in there. Well, I guess the maid came in there and she started up the sweeper, and all of a sudden those rattlers started rattling, but she didn't know anything about them. So she turned it off and they quit. So she turned it back on again. They started rattling again, turned it off. Finally, she took it to the maintenance department. She said, there's something wrong with this sweeper. They said, why? She says, it makes this god-awful rattle sound every time I turn it on. So they turned it on. She says, well, I don't hear anything. And then one of them says, wait a minute. What room was that happening in? And she told him, he says, oh, that's the animal guy. He's got rattlesnakes in those crates. He said, it was like, yeah, so she was pretty apprehensive. Oh, we'd have stuff go on. I remember we had a 4 or 5 foot alligator we kept in the bathtub at the motels, and the guy that was helping me, the alligator crawled out of the bathtub to go for a little cruise, and the guy that was working with me, he rolled over in bed and he heard a so he doesn't wake me up. He just rolls back over and covers himself up with the covers. And so about 4 in the morning, I roll over, my arm goes off the edge of the bed and I hear it do. And the alligator's running around the room. So, you slap yourself in the face so you can wake up before you're going to wrestle this alligator. And I'm doing that. I'm putting it back. And the guy said, what's going on? I said, you know what's going on, sucker. And the alligator's name was Adolf, because one time he almost ate off 2 of my fingers. So we just but
did you ever have an animal escape and get out of the hotel and down the street or down the hallway? Or
no, we never had that happen too much. I can remember one time we were in a shopping mall in New York, because in the early days we did a lot of shopping mall shows, and we had a little bear with us, and the little bear was let's put it this way, he had a different idea for everything. So I was walking him around on a lead, and he was kind of pulling me around. So I'm thinking, well, I have to let him know I'm on the end of this thing. So I gave him a little tug. Then as soon as I gave that lead a tug, it was like I was fly fishing. And there goes the bear down the maintenance hall running at full speed. And I'm running after it, and the maintenance guys are watching this all happen. And they were taking bets on whether I was going to catch the bear before it went into the open mall. So I saw the doors, the double swinging door. So I made a dive, and I grabbed the bear by the collar, and we both went rolling out to the shopping mall. And of course, little bear cubs going, and you could hear it everywhere. So we got it back in the maintenance hall. Then everybody blocked the door. We finally, that was interesting.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Geico presents Motorcycle Word of the Day. Today's word is tank slapper. Is a tank slapper used to describe a handlebar wobble? Or is it a motorcycle joke that is so funny you just have to slap the gas tank with your hand as you laugh? As in...
Oh, man, Daryl told me a great joke last night. It was hilarious. It was something about a dog wearing sunglasses. I wish I could remember. It was a real tank slapper.
Geico Motorcycle. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Gosh.
Yeah, I would imagine that, trying to get like a lion or something like that back into the cage, as it's running down the strip of Vegas, probably wouldn't be that easy.
Well...
I know it never happened, but
yeah, animal people, the good ones, they've always got, they're looking ahead 2 steps of any animal they're working with. So I'm not going to brag about it, but I've got a pretty spot-free record as far as animals creating problems that are jobs. We've been pulled over. We were pulled over in the state of New York once because that little bear cub they could see in the back of the camper we were traveling on. And the New York patrol said they thought we had caught it out of the wild and put it in that cage. And so we had to take it out of it's a cage and walk it on the highway on a lead to prove that we were actually raising. And this bear was not a wild bear we caught in the state of New York. So after they saw how nice the little bear was, they said, "Oh, okay." And I showed them our paperwork that you have to carry all the time. So that was pretty interesting. I mean, I could probably write a book on every trip.
Have you ever worked, Larry, with full-grown male lions?
Yeah, not in a show position. We always had a rule with our school programs that we worked with the animal until the day we thought that at its worst moment. Could we get it out of that situation?
Yeah.
And when we get that gut feeling inside that, it's getting the age now, it needs to retire. So at least doing school programs. So that's what we would do. And that's why we have property we do now. So the animals that we do retire, they just live with us for the rest of their life. Because, heck, they made us. And so we want to, return the favor, provide them with a home. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where do the lions and stuff? Where do they retire to after they're just?
Well, that's the point. Yeah, because many times I'd have to call, different outlets when we were in Indianapolis. We couldn't keep a collection of animals. It was hard because if the lion gets big, we'd have to find a home for it because of just room and caging responsibilities. So, and you don't know if. Bill's wildlife rescue might be really John's hunting preserve. I mean, you don't know that. So I didn't even like, I didn't like that at all. I really checked people out before we'd let something go. I remember we had a hyena, went to a guy that studied hyenas in Idaho, and we kept it for a couple of years after, before we found that home for it. Because, a hyena, it's not the easiest thing to place. I mean, we gave it a bowling ball to play with, and it chewed it up in pieces of the size of a quarter. I mean, it just shows you. And I describe it getting bit by a hyena as like sticking your hand in a closing car door with teeth. So it's like,
ouch.
I was wearing a T-shirt one day with all these North American animals on it, and I looked down and said, "I believe I've been bit by every one of these types of animals." So yeah.
Have you ever been injured, somewhat seriously, Larry?
Well, I was 3 days in intensive care and a week in the hospital after a rattlesnake bite.
Oh,
yeah,
that'll do it.
Yeah, and that was an education for sure. What had happened is a friend of mine in the Everglades sent me a big eastern diamondback. It was the biggest one I'd ever seen, 7 foot easily. His head the size of your hand. And I thought, well, I'm going to take this big rattlesnake and do some shows. We were going to St. Louis, Missouri, and Florissant, right outside of St. Louis. And the stage had like a skylight that had all these plants around it. So every time I'd bring that snake out, he thought he was back in the wild. So he would just go nuts. And it got so the shoe salesmen were betting which show I was going to get bit during. So I decided to use another snake and let that one just kind of cool down a little bit and give it a day to kind of relax, which they'll do. So I had about a 5.5, 6 foot timber rattlesnake, and I was putting him in the bag. And at that moment, I did probably the dumbest thing I'd ever done, because he was climbing up the bag and his head was just over the lip of the bag, this cloth bag. And I had hold of the bag with my left hand. My right hand, I just kind of bounced it off his nose and knocked him back down in the bag. Yeah, I know.
You know what's coming.
Yeah. He come out of the bag real quick. So, so I went to the mall office. It was a shopping mall, and I said, I've had a little accident. I'll be back later tonight. Oh, what happened? I got bit by a rattlesnake. My partner's going to take me to the hospital. Oh, okay. I said, don't tell anybody. I don't want anybody to know this has happened. I'll get back here and do these shows. So we get to the hospital, and they're waiting for us. And come to find out, the mall had called them that we were coming, and from there they called the newspapers. And so they got $10,000 worth of publicity for my stupidity. And there was intensive care. And that was an experience in its own self, because they don't see snake bite in St. Louis very often. So they had a cookbook they were looking through. Oh, we got to do this next. Oh yeah, make sure he's not allergic to the antivenin. Oh yeah, okay, do this. Need to lance where the bite was, and the bite was on the palm of my hand. And when they said hold him down, I knew this was going to hurt. And I think that was the only time I actually cursed, was when they lanced that right there on the palm of my hand. And it was stupid anyway, because I'd waited over an hour to go there, because the venom had completely gone through my body by then. So they didn't really need to do that. But and they gave me enough antivenom, it turned out, for an elephant. So the day I get out of the hospital, my body was 100% hives. So that was actually worse than the snake bite itself. So
how come you didn't take devenom the snakes?
Oh, I'd never do that. Just like I don't declaw any of the cats. We don't take out any of the teeth. I had a guy cuss me upside. He was a chimp trainer, and we had a Celebes ape that had full canines, and he just cussed me for working with that animal. He says, "You realize that how bad he could injure you in a split second?" I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "I've been around this animal 16 years. I believe I would know." And he just couldn't get over how we handled animals like that. I'm willing to.
I would think that every day you would have to wake up and be like, am I going to get trampled today? Or, is today the day that the rattlesnake gets me? I mean, did you ever feel like your life was in danger? I mean, I know Doug asked you about being injured, but did you ever feel like your life was in danger?
Not really. I mean, I had faith in my abilities and how to get around a bad situation. I can remember going to the zoo in Des Moines, Iowa, and we were doing some public relations for Mutual of Omaha, and they're giving us a behind the scenes of their big cat house they had. And there was a couple insurance agents with us, and one had this completely annoying, obnoxious plaid jacket on. And we're walking down behind the scenes, and we're by this leopard facility, and I looked up, and the leopard's up on a perch clear at the top. But I'm watching this cat, and I'm thinking he's got something on his mind. So then I get to looking at his enclosure, and I thought to myself, well, he can get a paw out right along here and right along here of this door. So about the time I put my hand on the guy's chest to move him back, it come across the cage, had the paw out, had his jacket, and was trying to pull. If he had not taken that step back, it would have had him. He would have gotten hurt seriously. So, animal people, you just have gut feelings, and you've got to go by it. I mean, if you kind of think from, this and that may not work out too well, then you best figure out an alternative.
So Larry, when you hear about, an animal trainer that's been killed and eaten by its lion or its tiger, I mean, what goes through your mind? Do you always think that was the fault of the trainer, that they made some, mistake? Or do you blame any of it on the animal? I mean, what goes through your head when you read articles?
Yeah, I never blame it on the animal. And it's usually not the person that works with it every day that this happens.
Yeah.
It's usually the volunteer the docent, people that come in there maybe on the weekends to be around the animals. That's usually what happens. I think of 2 or 3. I think was it Cincinnati Zoo? I'm not sure, but a young lady was killed by a tiger, and zookeeper. And sure enough, she was part-time, and she didn't do it every day. And when we had to go on road trips, I had a young man that would watch after our stuff. And I'd tell him, when I'd show him, I said, I'm going to teach you how not to die in my backyard. Even if you think you have a better idea, even if you think you can do something different, I said, don't. Do exactly as I show you. You see where I'm sitting this wheelbarrow full of meat to feed this cat? It sits right there every time. And these animals are creatures of habit. We have 2 bears, and why does he always call me potential spam? But they always come to feed the males on the right and the females on the left. Time it's the same. And anytime with any wild animal, you change it up a little bit, they don't like it. They don't like it. And that's when you have problems.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you are one of the few people probably in the world that has a pet that is a baboon.
Yeah.
I've been on the phone with you where you've got your baboon in in your house.
Oh, yeah. She's in there right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's in there watching television. And I think it's Peppa Pig right now is on, so she loves some Peppa Pig. Okay. In fact, the other day they were teaching the kids how to take care of lizards. And she was just sitting there. She's taking all that in. I mean, the baboon's an extraordinary animal. They're so intelligent. I mean, I feel dumb around it, to tell you the truth. And for instance, to show you how intelligent they are, if you give it a new toy to play with, and when you're handing it to her, you give that toy a name. If you come back an hour later and ask to see that toy by that name, she'll go and get it. She'll show it to you, but she won't let you touch it. Because they're very selfish, I can still remember there was these kids, these college students in Africa, and they were coming back to their cabins after a day. They'd been out in the bush, and the baboons had gotten into their cabins, and there was one baboon carrying a big case of toilet paper, with like 18, 20 rolls, and the kids are yelling, "What do you need that for?" And I was thinking, it's because it caught their eye. They want it, So it's extraordinary. I mean, animals are so intelligent.
Well, why is it that nobody else handles baboons?
Because they've got they're hard to handle as primates. Most zoo guys, I'd go to Cleveland, Ohio for an event, and the fellow from the Cleveland Zoo would always come around, and he'd ask me if we had our baboon with us, and I said, "Yeah." He says, "Can I see her?" I'd get her out, and he'd get a chance to touch it. And he'd actually break out into a sweat because they had Hamadryas baboons there. And he said, "They'll flat kill you. You go in with them." He said, "We have to move them from one area to the other to clean their enclosures." But baboons, my philosophy and my wife's philosophy is that you got to make them think everything's their idea. It's like working with a teenager.
Very prideful baboons.
Yes, you got to make sure make us think it's their idea. It's like, and you got to be ready, and you got to be 2-3 steps ahead, and you watch them enough, you can check. They have bad days. I've got scars to prove that, and they'll just go off in a minute because a baboon, and they're so protective. I've always said is that if my wife was with that baboon and somebody just tried to come up and start something, they'd have a problem. They'd have about a 40-pound problem that is fearless when it comes to protection. So that's, I love the challenge though. In fact, when we got this baboon, we had one for like 24 or 5 years, and she passed away. And it was a Hamadryas baboon. And we almost quit doing this because it bugged me so bad. I was so sad about this because I didn't want to tell school children what had happened. And it was bad enough they were bringing us flowers when we go to their schools because they'd heard. And about 6 weeks after that, I get a call from the small zoo down in Texas, and they said, "We heard that you lost your baboon. We have a baby that's mother won't take care of it." He says, "But to let this baboon out, it's kind of difficult because most people don't know how to handle them. I said, well, I've had a lot of experience. At that time, over 30 years experience. He's 11 years old now. And it's a challenge every day, but you got to, like I said, make sure everything's their idea. To them, they think that, and one step ahead of them.
If we go to page 11 in the presentation, you'll see that we're on target to meet our quarterly.
Some things never change, like nobody can resist popping plastic bubbles, and Geico saving folks lots of money on their car insurance.
As I was saying, we're on target to meet. Excuse me, Miss Hansen.
Sorry, almost done.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Geico presents Motorcycle Word of the Day. Today's word is tank slapper. Is a tank slapper used to describe a handlebar wobble? Or is it a motorcycle joke that is so funny you just have to slap the gas tank with your hand as you laugh? As in...
Oh man, Daryl told me a great joke last night. It was hilarious. It was something about a dog wearing sunglasses. I wish I could remember. It was a real tank slapper.
Geico Motorcycle. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
All the time.
How is the baboon different than a chimp in behavior, personality, smarts even?
Chimp's smarter, of course. The baboon's the smartest of all the monkeys, but chimp's smarter. Chimp's a whole different mentality. They're so developed. After the woman was attacked up in Connecticut, and people, when they're injured by these chimps, they don't realize that in their troop, tribe, hierarchy, that the males are very competitive. And they're so competitive that the reason they injure one, like biting off fingers or injuries on face, their thoughts is that male won't be as attractive to the other females. That's why they disfigure them. Ooh. And that's why when you hear people in these places that have been attacked by a chimp, usually first thing I ask them is how many fingers did they lose? Because that's usually what happens. I have a real good friend. He's a heck of an animal handler. And he was a sheriff for years, and they got a call one day. A woman had a chimp in her basement in Terre Haute, Indiana. And the chimp jumped her one day and hurt her pretty good. So the sheriff was there, and he heard this over the radio. So he says, hold on, don't do anything until I get there. So he gets there, and he goes down the basement. Here's this chimp in basically a jail cell. And it's a male, which makes things interesting. And he said, everybody get out of here. And as soon as everybody was out, he walked into that cage, but he carried a coal shovel with him. Well, here come the chimp to kill him. And he cracked it with that coal shovel, and it dropped just like that. And he thought he'd killed it. He said, oh, my God, well, it come to. It come to, and the two of them walked hand in hand out of that house, went to his car. The chimp sat in the passenger seat. He drove home. And he had that chimp for years and years. In fact, it would mow his grass. He said it would run his riding lawnmower better than he would. He said, all I have to do is mow the perimeter, and it would mow the grass. It would get on his motorcycle and below 40 miles an hour, start beating on the tank like this. And in the wintertime, when they'd be in the garage, the chimp would get on that motorcycle and say, wanting to go for a ride. He said, Sinbad's too cold. He also operated a petting zoo, and this was funny. He talked this young man into helping him, and they were loading up hay bales and straw and stuff, and the chimp was helping him, Sinbad. And the guy noticed that Sinbad went over to their trailer and got up in their trailer, and he kind of follows him, and Sinbad knew where all the Cokes were. So he opened up the little refrigerator, got him a Coke, popped it open, and the guy said, Sinbad, are you supposed to have that? That chimp turned around and looked at him, slammed that Coke down, grabbed a 2x4 and nearly beat that guy to death. I mean, it was like, and he said, I had a heck of a time getting him to go after that. I mean, it was like, he didn't want nothing to do with that. Sinbad was so extraordinary that he knew if he went down to the local filling station, he could get a Coke. And one day he climbed on the riding lawnmower, drove it through Russellville, Indiana, walked into the filling station. The guy saw it without Mike. He was by himself, and they knew to give it a quarter. And they called Mike up and said, Mike, you missing something? And Sinbad sat on that couch in that filming station, have his soda pop, waited for Mike to come and get him. And that was an amazing animal. He many years. He finally got married, and Sinbad didn't like his wife, so he had to find a place for her after that. It was not good. It was not good.
Yeah.
But
years ago, Larry, I did a show on, I think her name was Chandra, the lady that was attacked viciously by that male chimp.
Mm-hmm. In Connecticut.
Yep. And it's just, you hear about a story like that and you see the damage that chimp did in just seconds to her. It's kind of insane. I just wonder, when you hear about stuff like that, what's going through your mind?
Well, that's the same kind of a deal. That wasn't the person that handled that chimp.
Yeah.
It wasn't her chimp. It was a stranger. It was a visitor. It was, a docent, a volunteer. That's 99% of the time. That's usually who it happens to. And it's and that's why I've always, when I worked for that gentleman in southern Indiana that sold wild animals, I usually try and talk people out of it. I had a guy come in there one time and he wanted a baby lion. I go, why? Oh, I think that'd be cool to have me a lion. Oh, okay. So he left the deposit on it, and I'm trying to talk him out of it. Well, he comes in a few days after that, and we had a couple bigger lions that we had in this big room that every day we'd let him run in this room, and the guy that worked with him would play with him. And his body was solid scratches from just playing with these lions for an hour every day. So this guy comes in, he sees that. He says, I want to go in there with those two lions. I said, no, that ain't going to happen. I'm sorry. So he goes across the street and gets my boss. He comes back and he says, oh, let him go in. So we told him, we said, here's a broom. Hold his broom in front of you. The lions will leave you alone. So, he's on one side of the room. He's got a hold of that broom. The lions are on the other side. And, of course, all of a sudden, they just kind of eye him up. There's some new meat. And they start running over there, kind of halfway. Well, that guy throws that broom down, runs for the door. He don't make it. And they beat him up real good. And they bring him out, and he's, they weren't trying to kill him. They just beat him up good. And I thought, yes, he won't want a lion. That's fantastic. So, didn't see him for a long time. And every day I'd take this lion out and walk it on a lead. I'd take it across the street to the motorcycle shop. It's just a great lion. But it was getting big. It was getting about 120 pounds or so. So I'm in there one day by myself on a Sunday, and this guy comes in with his mother. He says, I'm here to pick up Kenya. And his mother says, he doesn't need a lion. I said, ma'am, you're preaching to the choir. I said, I totally agree with you. I said, how are you going to transport? He said, I got my car set up. So what? So I go outside, and he had a Ford Pinto hatchback. And he had this gate like you use for poodles with suction cups on the side. And that lion was supposed to ride back there. So he paid for it. Nothing I could do. So I load up the lion, and I'm not very happy. And he takes off. And in about, 10 minutes, I get a call. And he goes, Larry? I go, yeah. He goes, lion's bitten mother. Oh, no. He said, we're on north side of Bloomington by the marathon. All right, hold on. I'll be there. So I was driving a Volkswagen Bug. So I drive over there. And by the time I get there, the car is completely surrounded with people. Mother's on the curb crying. So I check her out. She just had a little nick on her finger. Wasn't nothing. And I look inside of that car, and every bit of that upholstery was destroyed. It was ripped to ribbons. So now I'm not very happy about this. So I told everybody, give me all the room in the world. And I walked that lion out to my Volkswagen, put it in the passenger seat, and then drove back. And all the way through Bloomington, Indiana, that lion just sat in that passenger seat, just looking around, not chewing on nothing. He thought that was great. So that was just shows you, that was a big ego. His little guy, probably had a big truck, one of them deals. So he needed him a lion.
Oh my goodness. What are your thoughts, Larry, on the demise of the family circus? I mean, that's where I certainly have amazing fond memories of going to a circus when I was a kid and just falling in love with, the animals that I could get close to. But obviously, for whatever reasons, they're folding up one after another. In fact, is there any circuses still surviving?
Well, look at Ringling Brothers. They quit. And I think it's sad because, people, if they're thinking about the care of that animal, these animals are under the spotlight every night. And they always look magnificent. And, there's certain aspects of it that this is their life. This is what they know. And I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it at all. And I'm with you. That's probably one of the things that stimulated my interest in animals was the circus. Yeah. But now, they're banning Dr. Seuss and they're banning the circuses. What do we do next? I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's nuts. So, and we haven't been able to do a show because of the COVID going on since over a year, so because of all the schools. And I wouldn't take our baboon to any school right now anyway because of that, because they could potentially catch that. So, so it's, I don't, it's the things are changing, and I don't agree with all of them.
Well, I'm sure Mike's got some questions, but I've got just one I want to sneak in. Because you've worked with, your baboon and primates, do you ever get Bigfoot reports that kind of really stir an emotion in you? Go, dang, I've witnessed that kind of behavior firsthand.
Yeah.
Primates I've worked with.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any examples of that?
Well, tools. I've seen baboons use a tool. You give her something with a scoop on it, she'll be out there digging you a hole for you. And it's pretty fun. She washes her own toys. There's a sink full of water with some suds in it, she'll wash those. So, I see the intelligence. My thing about the Sasquatch is we're dealing with something that's so intelligent and physically superior to anything we've ever known before. I mean, these things are amazing. And and I've always said, people ask me, he said, well, you're a wildlife educator. Why do you do Bigfoot? I says, well, it's another, living thing. And I find it a fascinating subject. But I'll tell you right now, if I ever see one walk up a flying saucer, I'm done with it. I have no interest in no aliens. So if that proves to be the case, I've lost all fascination for Bigfoot. But I don't think that's the case.
But as a wildlife guy, you would think you would be like the most skeptical person, right?
Yeah.
And I imagine you are, but you've seen obviously enough proof to convince you that they're real.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I have.
Why don't you?
I've talked to. I'll tell you what sealed. There's two people that sealed the deal for me after a conversation. First one was Bob Titmus, who was a well-known Bigfoot researcher in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and Yellowstone Park Ranger Bob Jackson. And with Mr. Jackson, for 30 plus years, he patrolled the most remote area in the United States called the Thoroughfare District, which is in Yellowstone National Park, by himself, 6 months of the year, hunting poachers. I mean, this guy was a bad whammer jammer. I mean, he was going after guys with guns that if they wanted to, there would be no witnesses. So that, that's pretty scary, I've always thought. And he'd arrested more poachers than all the other rangers combined. And his testimony had put people in prison, cost them tens of thousands of dollars. And he told me, he said, Larry, I'm going to tell you the exact facts. I don't care if anybody believes me or not. He says, I was on patrol one day and I had my pack horse and my other horse and that I rode, and they really started getting carried away. Their noses were flaring, their eyes were getting big, which usually meant there was a grizzly bear in the vicinity. So he's watching out for that. Well, he looks down his valley and he can see this deer in this willow grove. And he says, that doesn't make any sense at all because that deer would be out of here if there's a grizzly around. all of a sudden that deer bolted, and he watched this animal on 2 legs, black hair or fur, and he watched it stalk that deer from Willow Grove to Willow Grove for quite some time. And I thought that he didn't, but I found out a conversation I had with him not too long ago that he wrote that down in his logbook. He turned that in, of what he had seen. And he always said the trail crews and the other people that work in the park all were well aware of the existence of the Sasquatch, because they'd find things like deboned elk with huge footprints around them. He was telling me one time, he said, I was talking to a hunting guide, and all of a sudden this roar came out of the mountains. He said it sounded like 1,000 elk going to their death. And he said there was no animal that we know of in Yellowstone National Park that could have made that sound. He said the volume and the length of the sound, he says it was absolutely incredible. And after I talked to him, and I thought, well, I was right all these years. I wasn't silly to do this. I wasn't because I don't think there's 1,000 people out there trying to pull off a hoax, because there's sure been lots of eyewitnesses and people that really have no reason to lie about it. I mean, it's like, and I've talked to so many people that they really kind of regret the day that they saw it, because it's completely changed their look at the outdoors.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very sobering.
So with a lot of theories out there, especially in the paranormal community, as to what Bigfoot is, whether it is a natural creature of the earth, or whether it comes in a UFO, or whether it's some interdimensional traveler, with all of your research, what is your conclusion as to kind of what Bigfoot is, or what classification should we give it?
I would almost say it's probably as smart as our prehistoric man, a Neanderthal, and that sort of thing. It's not, I've always said it's not technically an ape like a chimpanzee or gorilla, because if it was, we'd have one in a zoo by now. And of course that hasn't happened. And all these stories and these reports that I've heard that, people basically say the same thing over and over and over again, that I realize how much there must be to this, that these things are credible. Where I live in areas where we get reports, and people will ask me, they say, well, you ever go out and research? I said, no. I said, I can be taking my trash out one night and walk into one. And I said, if you're looking for it, you're not going to find it.
To show you how easy it is to file a claim with Geico, we hired sports commentator Dick Vitale.
Tonight's matchup is me versus an ugly fender bender. If I can eke out a win, it would be a miracle, baby.
Mr. Vitale, it wouldn't be a miracle because Geico gives you a team of experts to help manage your claim.
It's going to be a nail-biter.
Nope. The Geico team is there for you 24/7.
Now that's a dipsy-do dunkaroo of a claims team. Geico is awesome, baby, with a capital A.
Geico. Great service without all the drama.
It's like hunting mushrooms. I mean, most people, 99% of the people that see them, they weren't expecting it. And 99% of the reports are never, reported per se, or sightings have been reported. So, because most people, when they've seen these things, their thoughts are, what did I just see? I can't, my mind will not allow me to digest what I just saw for a few moments. And usually what's what it is, a few moments. And then they start doubting themselves. What did I see? Oh, I couldn't have seen that. No. That's why a lot of these, they have these Bigfoot conferences. There's a lot of people that go there that have had something happen. And I think they want to go there for comfort, want to talk to someone that'll believe their story. And I honestly believe that. It's true. I had a sheriff call me one time, and he said, Larry, I got some footprints up, pictures I want to show you. And I said, what do you think they are? He said, I don't know. They're huge human-like footprints. I said, well, really, what? He said, the only thing I could ever think of is Bigfoot. I said, well, let me give you a little advice. I said, don't tell anybody. And I says, don't share these pictures with any media or anything, because you'll regret it, because you'll have so many people bugging you. I think there's somebody out there that's got a film that's better than the Patterson film, but they're not going to let it out because maybe it's their vacation home or their home or their place where they live, because they realize all of a sudden they'll get a bunch of guys with camouflage and cameras hanging off them up their front door, knocking on their door and bugging them to death. So I honestly believe that there is a film better than that, and we'll probably never see it.
Yeah, it's true. And you knew the ultimate witness, Bob Gimlin, quite well. I mean, way back. How far back do you go with Bob?
I go back with him into the 90s. In fact, he wasn't talking about it for many years, as you know. And one day I was talking about John Green, and I said, I was doing an internet show, and I said, I'd like to do an interview with you and Bob Gimlin. And he said, oh, well, I don't know. You can call him up and see what happens. So I managed to persuade him to do it. And it did very well. In fact, after that, then he started going to these conferences and different places. And when he walks into a conference, he's like Elvis. I mean, everybody, and for all those years he was harassed to death. He deserves it. He deserves this notoriety that he has now. And when you look him in the eye and he tells you the story, and that story has not changed in all these 50 years or so, I would tend to believe him, because he's, the funniest part about that film was the night they were back there, that night that shot the film, it was raining, and there was Bob in that camper with Roger Patterson sleeping, and he heard the raindrops. Well, he couldn't get Roger to get up. And so he said, we got to go cover those tracks. So he climbed on his horse and he drove back there in the darkness. And I asked him, I said, Bob, did you think about when you're riding that horse back in through those woods in the dark, what you saw earlier, that you might bump into that again? Of course, he's got that cowboy mentality. No, I didn't really think about that. I said, I'm just checking. I'm just wondering. Most people wouldn't. They'd think twice about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that fits Bob.
He's just I just love the man.
Yeah.
He's just really, really good soul. Really good soul.
So, Larry, why do you think all we have is eyewitness testimony? I mean, that's really all we have scientifically or anything for Bigfoot for decades. It's just eyewitness testimony. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people, and I'm sure you could ask this question a lot, like, why have we never recovered a body? Why have we not had, I don't want to say like a selfie, but I mean like legitimate, this is a Bigfoot in clear pixelation, it can't be anything else. Like, why do you think that has never come out? Do you think it's because they're afraid of like not being believed or being ridiculed or just nonstop being, harassed?
I think that could be to some extent, but as I said earlier, most sightings are 2-3 seconds, across the road or across the trail and gone. And people just don't really, even in this day and age, don't think to grab that camera. In fact, I know one guy that did, and he had a set-on selfie, so he got a real nice picture of his stomach. But but it just happened so quickly. And as far as the dead, animals die all the time. And they think, well, how many times have you found an animal that's, birds or whatever? I asked Bob Jackson, I said, how many dead grizzly bears have you found in your 30 plus years? He said, one. And the life cycle that they have, Mother Nature has a way of taking care of things. And these things are intelligent enough. I think that they're smart enough to realize, don't leave that around. We hide this. And they wouldn't have to do too much before Mother Nature completely destroy it. And I think they've found skeletons, but they may have been misidentified, because a bear skeleton looks like a human if you take off the head and the paws. It's fooled many a law enforcement officer when they thought they'd found a body, and they take it into the coroner, and he says, well, that's a real nice bear you brought me, but that's not human. So I think it's been, and I just don't think, and I really believe, this is what I really believe, that all your primates live in troops, groups, tribes, whatever you want to call them. Well, they do too. And I think if one should pass and they should hide it, that they're always in that vicinity. And there's many a person that said, I've walked out of a spot where I felt like I was being watched, and I would just leave. I mean, they can be so intimidating. You don't have to see them for them to be intimidating. You can hear them, little things, you know, the rock throwing thing and that sort of thing before they, well, for instance, a guy come up to me one time after I'd given a talk, and he'd gone to Washington to go fly fishing. And he said, we were just getting out in the river and getting ready to toss a couple lines out there when all of a sudden this boulder had to be 300-400 pounds. I pulled it out of the woods and in the middle of the river. And he says, as soon as we saw that, we just reeled in those lines, and we were not going fishing that day. And he'd come to Bigfoot talk. He said, what do you think? I said, well, that sounds like to me, I don't know of any animal that can do that, you know, or would do it, or reason to do it. So,
yeah. And Mike, you had mentioned we only have eyewitness count. Well, in Bob's case, we have footprint casts.
Yeah.
We have the film. We have 2 eyewitnesses, not 1, 2.
Yeah.
And in many cases, we have things like the Skookum body cast from 2000, the entire body cast, Achilles tendon, extreme details of thighs, hair patterns, hands. I mean, it's just, I'm looking at the photo of the Skookum cast. I just, you know, I'm constantly getting pictures of footprints and hairs, as I'm sure Larry sees quite often.
Yeah.
But it's short of a body, yes. And it's short of maybe a crystal clear bunch of sequenced photos or video that's just crystal, you know, National Geographic type quality. And yes, that we are lacking big time.
Well, they just discovered, well, I shouldn't say just, it was 5-6 years ago, they discovered a mangabey species in Cameroons, I believe, in Africa. And scientists been going in there for a long time. And this wasn't like a little monkey that could hide from them. I mean, it was fairly good size.
Yeah.
And they discovered that species. And of course, the ocean's just endless discoveries of, as you would know, Doug, about species of animals. I mean, I just think that most people that don't give it the time of day haven't done any reading or really looked into it.
Yeah. For instance, Larry, there are a number of game camera trap photos, but generally they're of only one part of the body.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just got one yesterday, or the day before, that is of a clenched fist. I mean, you can see the fingernails, you can see the folds of the skin. And the actual photo was sent to me. They didn't even know what it was. It wasn't until I enhanced it a bit by just upping the brightness, and all of a sudden I could see all the fingers and the fingernails. And this is kind of a typical thing, you know. Last summer we got one photo of what looks like an entire arm, but only the arm, and it's not clear. It's still somewhat blurry. It drives me nuts. And so, you know, what Mike is, you know, smiling about is true. It drives us nuts. I'm sure it drives you nuts.
Well, Bill Dranginis, God bless his soul, was developing the I Gotcha game camera, and he tested it a lot. He had decided that they could smell them, they could see them, because not only were Sasquatches avoiding these game cams, but, you know, animals like wolves could smell them, you know, and they'd act different. They'd take them into Africa for chimps and stuff. Chimps would see the game cam that was so well hidden and throw rocks at it. And, and then look at the Bluff Creek guys. They rediscovered the Humboldt marten in Northern California from their trail cams. And they told me, they said, they've got the entire Patterson-Gibbon side covered with trail cams, and they haven't got a picture of anything. And I said, well, that doesn't surprise me too much. There's no game cam pictures of an orangutan. I mean, period. And a lot of animals that have not been, they thought were extinct have come back. Javan rhinoceros, Sumatran tiger, even the snow leopards, that rarely photographed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the arguments are strong, but yet they're still weak because until somebody can raise $100 million to actually really finance the right people and the equipment, still, I think the arguments are kind of weak. It hasn't been done. Still amateurs,
Well, George Schaller, the zoologist, he has a foot casting on his wall. And a fellow asked him one day, he said, "What do you think about that, George? Do you think they exist?" And he says, "Well, there's no evidence they don't exist." And he said, that pretty much says it. There's no evidence.
And George is in charge of the World Wildlife Fund, or was.
Mm-hmm.
Is he retired? Is George retired now?
I'm not sure. He was the one that did all the research on the snow leopard.
Yep.
That's probably his big thing.
He told me personally, Larry, he said, in order to get a Sasquatch, you guys are going to need 400 cameras in an area and years of manning those cameras.
Yeah.
Because I know how hard he worked to get one photo of a leopard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
years.
Oh, well, there's a lot of animals that we don't have a lot of photos of too, that we know exist.
Yeah.
Of course, we go back to the old story for years and years. They talk about the mountain gorillas and scientists, there's no such thing up there like that up there. Well, sure enough, they go up there and what do they find? That all these primitive folks were right. That there's a mountain gorilla up in Kenya. So, and it gone undiscovered for many years.
Yeah, so we have a new gorilla. What about the Billy ape? Are you familiar with that particular giant chimpanzee?
Oh, yeah, right. I've done a little reading. I don't know much about it yet.
Yeah.
But,
I don't think the scientists do either.
No, that's what I was thinking. I
think it's been confirmed through DNA, but I don't think there's still any photos.
Well, and look at the orang pindak from Sumatra. John McKinnon, in his book In Search of the Red Ape, he talks about finding the footprints. And when he went back to London, all the scientists there, they said, "Yeah, we know. We've had these reports. We've seen the footprints, and there's something there. There's something to this." So,
have you heard about the Billy ape, Michael?
O'Reilly. Is your car no longer stopping like it used to? Don't miss out on spring brake deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Our professional parts people will help you find the brake parts and supplies you need to do the job right the first time. You'll find great deals on brake pads and rotors, fluids, degreasers, and more. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Geico presents Motorcycle Word of the Day. Today's word is tank slapper. Is a tank slapper used to describe a handlebar wobble? Or is it a motorcycle joke that is so funny you just have to slap the gas tank with your hand as you laugh? As in...
Oh man, Daryl told me a great joke last night. It was hilarious. It was something about a dog wearing sunglasses. I wish I could remember. It was a real tank slapper.
Geico Motorcycle. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
No.
Heard about that? Okay, well, they call it the natives called it the giant killer, or the lion killer, because it would nest on the ground. It was so big, it would nest on the ground, and it apparently had no fear of lions because it could kill a lion. This all came out of, native lore, the people that were still living in the forest. There were photos of dead ones, which was really interesting. And they were huge. What would you estimate, Larry? 30, 40, 50% bigger than a normal?
Oh, yeah, easily. Yeah. That's an incredible animal. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah. So it's spelled Bile, Billy or Billy ape. Some people call it.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth anybody researching.
Well, it's makes you want to go over there and take a look. But then again, maybe you don't.
Pass.
Michael says no.
Yeah.
I wouldn't a heartbeat.
I'm good looking for spirits. So, so Larry, you had said something earlier when we first started talking about Bigfoot about them being like probably the most intelligent animal out there. So do you think that us not being able to find anything, about them or just seeing them on a glimpse, that all of that is an intentional decision on their part, and they, either they don't feel that we can be trusted with knowing that they exist or being around them, or coming out just, because you see deer, you see all these other animals like going down to the river or just in the field, feeding. Obviously, you never see a Bigfoot. So, I mean, do you think that they just don't want to be around us? They don't want us to find them, and that they kind of know, like it's a strategic decision on their part on who they allow to see them, whether it's a crossing the road or anything like that.
I think it's in their DNA. Like how does an animal know to do this? It's never been around. It's for instance, our baboon. It was never around other baboons. So the grooming thing, who told it to do that? I mean, that's part of their DNA. That's part of their behavior. Because our baboon, the first thing every morning, it has to have a grooming session where it hops on the back of the couch and it goes through, make sure Dad doesn't have any bugs in his hair or salt or whatever. And it has to do that. I mean, we didn't teach it to do that. So I think that their natural instinct is not to like us. And of course, they probably maybe had dealings that weren't so good with people. I always tell these researchers, I say, when you go on your little research trips, you got that camouflage on and stuff. Do you think they're not going to see you? Do you think they're not going to hear you? And so I said, you're better off to go to Walmart and get you the brightest colored Hawaiian shirt you can find and wear that and not even look like a hunter. And when you go in the woods, don't act like you're lurking, because either way they're going to be suspicious of that. So, just walk through the woods, take the family on your Bigfoot research trip, and put some pink flamingos in your yard, make it look like a family event. And your success rate would probably be much better, because then you're not labeled as a hunter. I had a couple of fellows that go down to southern Indiana and they do what's called call blasting. And this one guy built this public address, says, I bet it's 250 watts. I mean, it could blow the leaves off the trees. And he asked me, he said, what kind of calls do you think I should play? I said, well, baby sounds are pretty good, or maybe get some gorilla sounds. Okay. So we do our Friday night Bigfoot thing, and he calls in. He says, Larry, I'm getting ready to play these things here in the woods. Okay, we're listening. So here's these god-awful gorilla sounds go bellowing through the woods, and got babies crying going through. And I'm thinking to myself, if there's any campers down there right now, there's probably a car jam getting out of that park. What the heck's coming out of the woods after him? But it works though. Especially I've been told that the baby cries are very, very, very successful. To the point one guy said, "I'll never do it again." So then I laugh at him. I go, well, why are you researching Bigfoot? Isn't that what you're trying to do? I mean, you want to try and bring them to you with calls, and now you're afraid when they do show up? What's that all about? Did you not think that, more guys said that have had a sighting, they regret the day they did. I do forensic drawings with people where I describe what they saw. And these guys, I mean, when we get down toward the end, they're crying. Oh my God, dude, just like it's all happened again. This is weird. And I'm thinking, well, you go out there looking for them. What do you think? What's going to happen when you find it, or it finds you? It's perplexing to me. I just don't understand the mentality there. Here's a really good example. I was feeding the cats one night, and earlier that day, I'd taken off and gotten tiger food, and I had some friends from Florida that were helping me with the bear enclosure. So I get back, and they say, well, while you was gone, something was walking up that ravine right behind your house. It sounded big, but I don't know what it was. So I didn't want to start a discussion with them. So, okay, that's interesting. So that night, I'm feeding the cats. And we had this one Siberian tiger that was just like, man, it was like he had to make his kill every night. I'd walk up with that bucket of meat, and he'd hit the front of this enclosure. It was like he had to make a kill. I said, man, you don't have to kill it. Just move over to the other side, and I'll give it to you. So it worked on a guillotine system. We move him from one side to the other. Well, that night, I walk up to his enclosure, and it's dark, and I have that bucket of meat, and he's not coming. What's going on? Louis, come on, Louis, I got your meat. Nothing. I think, God, did he get out? So I looked down through his enclosure, and clear on the other end, it looked like one of those concrete statues you see in front of people's gates. That tiger, and he was totally focused toward the back behind his enclosure, that valley where they'd heard that sound. And I looked down all the other cats because they were all in a row. We had some mountain lions, we had an African lion, 2 or 3 other tigers. And every one of those cats was looking right back in those woods. And I got mad at myself later because I thought, man, if I'd have walked around that Gator building, walked down through that ravine, I'd have probably run into something. But that wasn't my first inclination. I didn't, that didn't. And then the next day, it kind of all dawned on me. I said, God. So I went over there and looked around. Sure enough, there were places that had been mashed down and stuff. Something big had been through there. So, and I was mad at myself then.
What do you think you would do? Let's say you gone down into the ravine and sure enough, like there was a Bigfoot there. Like, what do you think you would do if you came face to face with one?
Well, you avoid eye contact because that's a threat. That's a threat to any primate, humans, whatever. Avoid eye contact and act like it's no big deal. No big deal. And I would never turn my back to it. And my senses of working with animals would tell me what to do, whether just to stand there, observe it, or I need to leave, depending upon its behavior. That's what it's all about. If I sense that its behavior is not good and it could be a problem, then I'd walk out. I'd walk facing it out. But and no two have the same personality. They're like us. So you might run into a nice one, then you might run into a real jerk. And it may not be good, it just may not be good at all. So you just have to, I think if anyone said what they would do, they really, when the situation actually happened, that they'd forget all that. Most people would. I think they just forget about it. It's like when they say when you encounter a wild mountain lion, be big, wave your arms around and try to intimidate the cat. I always said, look for a rock and let him have it, and see what goes from there, and back out. And I said, if you're really bad, and I said, if you're actually getting mauled by the cat, right behind that front leg, if you knee him just right, you'll knock all the wind out of him, and it'll drop him for just enough for you to get out of there. But you got to do it pretty good, though. You got to get a good one. That one I know from experience.
Oh, I thought you were saying that you had to like kick a Bigfoot behind the knee to knock.
No, I was talking about a mountain lion.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think it'd be pretty dumb. I mean, to physically try and compete against it because we're really pretty much a pitiful thing. I mean, we're just flesh and bones, and we're pretty pathetic compared to animals. What I've always thought about animals, I said, man, they are so focused. They are so focused, animals. Eating, surviving, making more. That's it. They don't have hobbies. They don't have silly things that they do. They just, the survival and their focus, very intent. And when you look into the eyes of something like a tiger, a bear, as Doug would tell you, you see something that is so deep, you realize you're just a little speck of nothing. You're just a little speck of nothing. It's kind of like when you look at the mountains for the first time, or you look at the ocean for the first time, you realize you're just a little speck on this planet. And I feel that way sometimes when I'm back here with the big cats, and I look at them and I'm looking in those eyes. I'm thinking, man, you can tell me so much. You have so much wisdom. I mean, my gosh, they're just incredible.
Yeah. See, Larry, I would imagine you've heard a number of recordings of vocalizations, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard a vocalization that reminded you of a certain primate, like a baboon or some other type of animal? I mean, what is it that they remind you of when you hear a Bigfoot?
They don't remind me of any primate. Now, unless you would talk like maybe a gibbon.
Okay.
It doesn't sound primate to me. Well, I should say it doesn't sound like other primates. Not saying it couldn't be. But I think Bob Jackson's analogy of sound like 1,000 elk going to their death when he heard the scream come out of the mountains, that he said no other animal could have done it. I had another friend of mine. He was up in northern Ohio, and he'd sat along this river, and it was 2-3 in the morning, and he said, Larry, I had a recorder with me, and he said the only thing I heard was the last 3 steps when this thing walked right up behind me, and it just stood there breathing. So he turned on the recorder and he recorded this breathing sound, and a few minutes he just turned around and left. Well, he took the recording into a doctor. He said, Doc, what do you think of this sound? Because he didn't actually see it. He was afraid to turn around. And he said, whatever did that had to have 55-gallon oil drums for lungs. I mean,
that's a good description.
That's a good description. And so, so the sounds, I've heard them here. I was thinking, what's that? And I said, I've got a good idea. I've got a good idea what that is. We had a sighting. It's primarily why we bought it. Well, that's why I bought this place. My wife could have cared less about that. But we had a sighting where Dad and 2 boys went squirrel hunting, and they got back in the woods before the sun come up. And the one boy's on the top of this ridge, and he hears something coming through the woods. He sounded like the biggest buck he'd ever heard. So he crawls up to the top of the ridge. He said, I'm going to put my stand here, my deer stand. Well, he looks over there, and the first time he looks across this valley, he doesn't see anything. He looks again, and he sees it standing next to a tree. And he said, Larry, he said it was about 7 feet tall. It was covered with black hair. And he says it was looking right at me. Of course, the boy had a shotgun with him, and he raised that shotgun up. And as soon as he did, this thing took a step toward him. He was, 20 yards away from it. And he said, the moment it did that, he says, I dropped to my knees, and he says, I'd lost all equilibrium. And that moment of hesitation, this thing took off through the woods. And I said, how fast did it run? He said, well, it ran as fast as any deer. The only thing different is it didn't run around the little trees. It just run over them. And the entire time it was screaming. And he says, the farther away it got, the more aggressive the screams became. Well, I said, that's typical primate behavior there. Because, a troop of baboons see a lion, the first thing the male baboon, that's danger. There's something going on. Everybody be on alert. And the farther away he gets from the lion, the braver the baboon becomes. And the more aggressive he acts. When the lion's right there at first, he's like, oh, Christ, I got to put on a show now. So you put that show on and keep that lion away from his troop. But he said that. And what was really funny, because the conservation officer told me the story about that, is that his buddy saw it too. But when his buddy saw this coming down, he took off and ran home about 3 miles. And the conservation officer got the 2 boys apart, and he said, Larry, he said, I had him draw me a picture. They weren't artists, but they both drew the same thing. And it was pretty interesting. That's like a half mile from my house.
So, like all over this country and really all over the world, you have the Yeti, you have the what's the Australia, the Yowie?
Yeah.
You have the skunk ape, you have the dogman, you have the Sask. Do you believe that these are all like the same animal, and they're just kind of adjusted to their environment, a completely different creature? Or do you think like maybe they're like different races of the same species?
Oh yeah, they're subspecies. Absolutely. You know, they that without a doubt, they're subspecies. It's like the skunk apes are the ones I've heard reported are smaller than the Bigfoot reports from out west. In fact, I have a friend for many years. He raised his family of 10 kids by collecting reptiles out of the Everglades, shipped them all over the world. And I asked him about the skunk apes. He said, "Oh yeah, we see them all the time." He said, "You usually see 15 or 20 together." And he says they're smaller. He explained how they build nests there back here in the swamp out of the palmetto leaves and all that. I says, "Oh man, you find a nest? Could you send me one?" He said, "Do you realize what the shipping on that would be?" So he never did send me one. But
I just take a photo or a video would be good.
Yeah, not now though. You have to have photo and video won't work. The technology is taken over. Some big guy in his basement could make one heck of a Bigfoot video if he had the right Photoshop and the right video. So that's, that technology is really not.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, Mike, shut your cell phone off completely, like it's in hibernation. Count how many seconds it takes to power it on, go to your photo setting, turn your photo thing on, get it on video or whatever, get it on the right setting. By then these things are gone.
History. See ya.
Yep.
Out there.
All this tech, but in the old days, you'd have a spring wind camera that was ready just to go snap. Just hit the button. That was it. Picture was taken. I really do think a lot of researchers should go back to, old Kodachrome, film, and I don't even care if it's just any kind of, 110 camera. It's going to be quick. It's going to be instant.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I've always said Roger Patterson was the luckiest man in the world, and people talk about how the film, parts of it are real jittery and so on. I says, my dad had one of those cameras. We've got entire vacations, videos or films at home that look like the beginning of the Patterson movie. Oh, wow. I mean, and he wasn't trying to film a creature. He's just trying to keep his kids all together so he could get their picture in these beautiful mountains or something. Yeah. So it's like,
but he had, if he would have had a modern video camera strapped, like a big television camera, strapped to the back of his horse, he would have had to go and turn a power switch on, warm up, look through the viewfinder, find the record button. The thing probably would have been gone.
White balance.
Yeah, the white balance. All the things you gotta do. But he had a spring wind instant on 16 millimeter, camera, and he just literally had to push a button.
Yeah.
Just instant, it came on. So
first time.
Go ahead.
Well, the first time I talked to Bob Titmus about that, he went right down there after the University of British Columbia after they showed the film the first time, and he tracked where that thing had gone up the hill, and he could see where it set down on these rocks about the size of golf balls covered with algae, and just hearing that story. Basically, when I hung up the phone, it all changed. I realized that there was, after talking to him and John Green, that there is definitely something to this. There's been, and it's not everybody that lives in a trailer park that sees them either. It's not every hillbilly. I mean, there's lots of people in law enforcement that have seen them.
Oh, God.
And when I did a talk on Bigfoot for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, at the National Conservation Training Center. This was in 2001, I think. And I had an audience of 250 law enforcement people, whether conservation officers, fish and wildlife agents. And I gave this talk. And after I'd always finished the talk, I said, how many of you out there think this is all just a big load of crap? Not one hand went up. Not one. And for months after I gave that talk, I got so many emails from different people that worked in parks and so forth, because that talk and also television broadcast we did was sent out to over 1,200 outlets in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And lots of people had a chance to see it. And I got a lot of response. In fact, I got gal was the foreman for the construction crew that built the National Conservation Training Center. And she said every morning when we would come in, we'd find these big footprints around the equipment, around the tractors and stuff we were using. So, and a lot of them thanked me. They said, "My gosh, thank you for doing that," because we were always afraid, job security and all that. So it was, yeah.
I just saw the most amazing thing I've ever seen. A DNR in, I think it's the Salt Fork Park in Ohio. It's Ohio, I believe. Mm-hmm. They have produced a Sasquatch training video.
Oh, really?
DNR has. And I'm like, am I really watching this? And it's literally the DNR. It's paid for by the DNR. It's a whole educational series they're doing. And it's not, it's dead serious.
Yes.
And it's on YouTube. And I just saw the link yesterday, the day before. It's pretty amazing.
Well, the U.S. Army and their field manual, they told soldiers what to do if they ran into a Sasquatch. I mean, right there. And there's a lot of soldiers that fought in Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan that have seen something in those mountains very, very similar to what we see here in the Northwest. So it's, and I talked to a good friend of mine who's with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service a couple weeks ago, and he says, do me, tell the Bigfoot people, we don't have a Bigfoot. We don't have one. Okay. And if we did, I'd tell you to keep it quiet, but I would tell you, but we do not have a Bigfoot. So I said, okay. And they put out a press release too, what they would do if a Sasquatch was brought in, if a body or part. They would immediately have an emergency session of Congress. They'd make it an endangered species. They would send the National Guard into that area. The area would be completely cordoned off. No one was going in. And it's a page and a half press release that they released in 1978, I think. I was just looking at the other day.
Do you think that they would still do that to this day? That they would make it an endangered species and that they would protect it, and they, also that they were doing this press release back in the 70s?
I think they would. If the right type of evidence was brought in. I've always said this would have all changed. It would all be different now if two things were different. If Roger Patterson or Bob Gimlin had doctor or PhD on the front or back of their names. If they've been doctors or scientists and got that same film, same quality, that it would be all different. Because, when Bob Titmus watched that film the first time, he couldn't believe the scientists that walked out of that room, because he said, when I looked at that film, I thought we were done, because that was the same thing I saw in British Columbia, and that was the same thing I saw off the coast of Alaska. So I think that's the deal. Roger Patterson needed to have been a doctor, and then we would look at it much differently.
With the couple minutes that we have left, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, if they have a question, if they have that missing video that they don't want to release, that you think it exists, and so they just want to send it to you, how would they best get a hold of you? Or if they want to watch your Facebook drawing Bigfoot show? Oh yeah, just through Facebook. Just friend me on Facebook, Larry Battson. Battson. Send me a friend request. And we're always posting stuff. I'm doing Bigfoot programs on Friday night. Wednesday night, we do a thing called Animal Stories. I tell stories, like we've done here tonight, about my experiences with wild animals and so forth. So, and all the different things that we market or try to market. No school now, so the funding goes way down. So thank God for the people that have contributed to our animal family and helped us out, or purchase my artwork. I also have an art page, Larry Battson Animal Guy Art Studio, that people can purchase different animal art pieces I've done. And please don't tell me you also play music. I do. I honestly do. I do play music, yeah. And you sing, banjo, is it? Imagine you sing with that beautiful low voice.
Yeah. I've been known to do that. Beautiful has never been the phrasing that I've heard with it, but yeah, we do a Saturday night. I've just connected with my son, and he's an actor in New York City. He does plays and stuff, and he's now my co-host on my Bigfoot show because he doesn't know anything about it, which makes it fun. Because I've watched these streams on Bigfoot, these different ones, and now there's a million of them, and they're just not good. They're just certain qualities about them. I go, gosh, there's been a couple that I was asked to be on, and I thought to myself, I'll never get this 2 hours back in my entire life again. This is all, and the names Tactical Bigfoot Research Group. I'm like, what tactical you are? You're not tactical. You're just guys going back in the woods thinking you're going to stir something up. I've always said that Sasquatch has a sense of humor. They'll be standing next to a tree and see some guy walking through there in camouflage with cameras hanging off of him and stuff, and they're looking and laughing and saying, "Where's a rock? Where's a big old rock? I can chuck at that guy." To watch the response. So,
well, thank you for coming on our show, Larry.
Oh, it was a blast.
Absolutely, it's been wonderful.
Yep, it's always fun to talk to you.
Well, it was great for me too. Thank you.
Absolutely. So that does it for us this week. Mr. Joel Sturgis will be back next week with another great episode of Untold Radio. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, wear a mask. We want to see you back here next week. Have a good one.
Nature makes the things we love. That's why Walmart and the Walmart Foundation are committed to help protect, manage, or restore at least 50 million acres of land and 1 million square miles of ocean by 2030.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.